Hey there, this is DIY Life Guide coming at you once again, and today I'm going to explain to you how I added corrugated metal siding to my tiny house. Corrugated metal is typically used in roofing projects or for fencing, things like that, but it's not used for siding as much. I think it's a great choice for siding. It is very easy to move, very light, easy to cut, so it's definitely easy to install for siding, although it might be a little bit more expensive than, say, wood siding or cement board siding. The corrugated metal that I bought is a 30 gauge corrugated metal that is 26 inches wide, came in lengths of 8 foot, 10 foot, and 12 foot. And the reason I chose this size is because the 26 inch wide panels are roughly 2 feet wide, and my framing of my house is actually set to 24 inches on center. The dimensions of these corrugated metal sheets lined up perfectly with the framing of my actual house. How you install corrugated metal siding is all going to depend on the kind of house that you have and the kind of insulation that you have. So for most houses, you're going to have standard internal insulation. So it's going to be bats that you put in between the stud bays. This is internal insulation. For this type of house, you can just screw the sheets of corrugated metal directly into the studs that are holding up the sheathing of the house. And you can see where the studs of the house will be based on where you nailed in the sheathing to the framing of the house originally. In my particular case, I used external insulation on my house, so the entire exterior of the house is covered with mineral wool bats. Those bats are held down by wood battens that run vertically all the way up the house. They are attached to the house with 6-inch long screws. So my siding was going to be screwed into the wooden battens that were holding down the mineral wool bats. The mineral wool bats that were surrounding the exterior of the house. Installing the corrugated metal siding is pretty easy. You just need to use roofing screws and drill through the sheet and into the stud of the wall that you're attaching the siding to. The corrugated metal sheets are 26 inches wide, which basically they're 2 feet wide, and they have an inch overlap on either end, so that way you can stack one on top of the other going down the row. So you'll end up starting at one end of the house, and then you'll overlap pieces all the way down the row until you get to the end of the house. And that way, when you overlap pieces, there's no gap for any water or anything like that to get in. Also, for the corrugated metal sheet, when you're installing them in a row, you're gonna wanna add a bead of roofing sealant along the edge that the two sheets are attaching. You want to screw down the metal siding with roofing screws and drill the screw right through the piece of corrugated metal and into the stud that is holding the wall. And you want your screws to be placed every 2 feet all the way down the wall. That way you have good support of the piece of siding to the framing of the house. For most pieces that you install, you'll have no penetrations and you won't have to worry about cutting the length at the bottom. It will just be a full sheet screwed in to the house. In some instances, you're gonna have to cut around windows, doors, or reduce the length at the bottom before you install it. The best way to do this is just take the corrugated metal sheet and just lift it up and lean it against where you have an idea of where the window will line up with the piece of metal sheeting. And then you can mark it with a pencil and then use some tin snips, make a cut into the sheet where you need to make a cut, and then just put the metal sheet back up on the wall, see if it lines up with the window or door. It's a little bit of trial and error, but really cutting this metal sheeting is really not that hard.